Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start with a question. What if everything you've been waiting for, wealth, opportunity, abundance, was only 7 words away? 7 words. Not a book. Not a 10-year plan. Not a complicated strategy. Just 7 words. Now, before I tell you those words, let me paint a picture. Imagine you're holding a radio in your hand. You want to hear music. But the dial is stuck between stations. What do you hear? Static. Noise. Frustration. That's how many of us live. We want success. We want prosperity. But our inner dial is stuck. We're tuned into fear, worry, and doubt. Florence Scovel Shinn once said, "Your word is your wand. What you speak shapes your world." And wealth isn't just about money. It's about a flow of energy. It's about harmony. And the fastest way to tune into it is by speaking the right words. So what are these 7 words? Lean in with me. Listen carefully. I now attract abundance in all ways. Say it with me. Say it again. Feel the power in it. Notice what happens inside you. A spark. A shift. That's your dial moving. That's your frequency aligning with wealth. But maybe you're thinking, can words really change my life overnight? Let me give you an example. A woman I once knew had been struggling for years. Bills stacked high. Opportunities slipping away. She decided to try something radical, changing her words. Instead of saying, "I'm broke," she whispered daily, "I now attract abundance in all ways." Within weeks, a job offer came. Then another opportunity. Within months, her life looked completely different. Coincidence? Or alignment? Think about it. Every invention we use today, planes, phones, even the internet, started as words. Someone said, "It can be done." Words are seeds. Plant them right, and life grows in your favor. Now, here's the truth. You don't just say these 7 words once. You speak them like you mean them. You speak them until they become part of you. Say them when you wake up. Say them when fear creeps in. Say them before you sleep. And watch as doors you never noticed begin to open. Because wealth is not waiting outside of you. It's waiting inside of you. And when you declare it, life rearranges itself to deliver. So let me leave you with this challenge tonight. For the next 7 days, speak those 7 words with conviction. Write them down. Repeat them. Live them. And then, watch what happens. Because wealth is not a far-off dream. Wealth is a frequency. And with 7 simple words, you've just learned how to tune in. Following are the key points you will listen in this video. Words carry power, they shape reality. Wealth is more than money, it's energy and flow. The exact 7 words, I now attract abundance in all ways. Shifting your words shifts your frequency toward prosperity. Repetition and conviction make affirmations powerful. Aligning with abundance opens unseen opportunities. Let me take you deeper into this idea that words carry power, that the very syllables we speak create ripples in our lives far beyond what we can see. Think about the first time someone spoke life into you. Maybe it was a teacher who looked you in the eye and said, "You have potential." Maybe it was a parent whispering, "I believe in you." Or perhaps a friend who told you, "You're stronger than you think." Do you remember how those words felt? They didn't just float in the air and disappear. They entered your heart, they stayed with you, and they shaped the way you walked forward. That is the invisible force of words. Florence Scovel Shinn said, "Your word is your wand." She meant that every phrase you speak becomes a command to the universe. Imagine standing in a dark forest, holding a torch. Wherever you point it, that is what you see. Words are the torch. They illuminate possibilities or they highlight fear. When you say, "I can't," you shine the light on limitation. When you say, "I can," the path unfolds in front of you. There was a young man I once met who grew up hearing the phrase, "We can't afford it." Every time he wanted something, a toy, a trip, even a dream, those words would echo back. "We can't afford it." As he grew older, he stopped asking for things. Even as an adult, when he got a promotion or a raise, those words clung to him. He found himself sabotaging opportunities, making choices that kept him stuck in lack, because deep down he was still carrying the spell of those 5 words. But then something shifted. He attended a workshop where the speaker challenged the audience to change the phrase. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," they were told to ask, "How can I afford it?" That one change opened a new channel in his mind. Suddenly he was searching for solutions instead of repeating limitations. Within a year, he had doubled his income simply because he traded a word of defeat for a word of possibility. You see, the human brain is like fertile soil. Whatever seed you plant, the soil doesn't judge. If you plant weeds of doubt, they'll grow. If you plant flowers of abundance, they'll grow too. Words are the seeds. Most of us don't realize that every casual phrase, every joke about being broke, every complaint about being unlucky, is a seed we've scattered. And then we wonder why weeds of struggle keep showing up in our lives. I remember reading a story about Thomas Edison. As a boy, he came home with a letter from school. His mother read it, tears in her eyes, and told him, "Your teacher says you are a genius, and this school is too small for you. You'll need to learn at home." Years later, after Edison had become one of the greatest inventors in history, he found that same letter in a drawer. The paper actually said, "Your child is mentally deficient. We cannot handle him." His mother chose to speak different words over his life, words that lifted him instead of crushed him. And because of her, he believed in himself long enough to give light to the world. One sentence rewrote his destiny. Now pause and imagine your own life. How many sentences are you carrying that don't belong to you? Words from childhood, words from society, words spoken in anger that left a scar. What if those words were never truth? What if they were just someone else's static? And what if, today, you had the power to replace them with new words, words that call in wealth, opportunity, joy? I often tell people to think about words like passwords. Without the right password, the door stays locked. But when you speak the right phrase, the system opens. Wealth works the same way. The universe responds to the password of abundance. Say, "I am broke," and the system shuts down. Say, "I now attract abundance in all ways," and you've entered the code. It may not open in a second, but you've activated the process, and that process cannot ignore the vibration of your words. Let me give you a real-life scenario. 2 people walk into a job interview. One says to themselves beforehand, "I'm nervous, I hope I don't mess up, I never get these things right." The other says, "I am confident, I am prepared, I bring value wherever I go." Same qualifications, same room, but different outcomes. Why? Because words shape energy, and energy is felt before it is spoken. The interviewer feels it. The world feels it. You've felt it too. You've met someone who seemed magnetic, who seemed lucky, and maybe you thought, what's their secret? Most of the time, their secret is the words they live by. Even science is catching up. Studies in neuroscience show that words we repeat form neural pathways. Say something often enough, and your brain literally rewires itself to believe it. Your actions follow belief, and your results follow action. That's why a single phrase repeated with conviction can shift a life. I want you to picture yourself standing in front of a mirror. Imagine that every word you speak paints a stroke on the glass. Over time, the reflection you see isn't you anymore, it's the collection of the words you've painted. If you've said, "I'm unlucky, I'm broke, I'm not good enough," the reflection will show exactly that. But if you begin to say, "I am worthy, I am abundant, I am attracting opportunities," the reflection changes. And so does the reality on the other side of the glass. Florence Scovel Shinn believed words were like boomerangs. Whatever you throw out will always come back. Throw out fear, and fear returns. Throw out faith, and faith brings fruit. She would often remind people to guard their tongue like a treasure chest. Not because silence is safer, but because words are currency. Spend them wisely and they multiply. Waste them carelessly and they leave you empty. So, when I tell you that words carry power, I'm not speaking in metaphors. I'm telling you that your financial life, your emotional health, your opportunities, and your relationships are all echoes of the words you've spoken. The beautiful truth is that it's never too late to change the echo. One decision. One phrase. One moment where you shift your vocabulary from lack to abundance can begin to rewrite the story you've been living. And the most important thing to remember is that you don't have to force the results. Your only job is to speak with conviction, to plant the right seeds. The soil, the universe, the subconscious, the unseen forces will handle the growth. You may not see the sprout tomorrow, but it will come. Because words never vanish. They plant. They grow. They return. Wealth is more than money. That's a phrase most people hear and nod at politely, but very few truly understand. Because the moment you say wealth, almost everyone pictures dollar signs, big houses, fast cars, overflowing bank accounts. And yes, money is a piece of it, but it's only one thread in a much larger tapestry. True wealth is not a number in your account. It's a state of being, a current of energy, a flow that touches every area of your life. Think for a moment about someone who has all the money in the world but no peace of mind. They lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, worried someone might steal it, worried the market might crash, worried they might lose it all. Is that person wealthy? Or think about the executive who earns millions yet spends so little time with his children that they barely know him. Is that wealth? Contrast that with someone who perhaps doesn't have a fortune but wakes up excited, spends their days creating, contributing, loving, and going to bed fulfilled. They walk into a room and their energy lights it up. People want to be around them. Opportunities gravitate toward them. That is wealth. Florence Scovel Shinn often reminded her students that abundance is not about hoarding, it's about flow. Imagine a river. If it gets blocked, the water turns stagnant. Mosquitoes gather. The smell grows sour. That's what happens when people clutch money tightly, afraid to let it move. They become stagnant themselves. But when the river is flowing, when money, love, ideas, and opportunities circulate freely, it nourishes everything along its path. That's why some people seem endlessly blessed. It's not because they have more, it's because they allow more to move through them. I once knew a woman who lived in a tiny apartment with very little income. By society's standards, she wasn't rich at all. But if you walked into her home, it felt like stepping into sunshine. There was laughter, warmth, and always a pot of tea on the stove. She volunteered at her community center, she shared what little she had, and somehow, she always had enough. People were drawn to her. She would say, "I am rich in friends, rich in joy, rich in life." And you know what? Eventually, financial opportunities started finding her too. It was as though her inner wealth magnetized outer wealth. Now, picture the opposite. A man wins the lottery. Overnight he becomes a millionaire. At first, it looks like success. But within a few years, he's bankrupt, broken, and lonelier than ever. Why? Because he had money, but not wealth. He didn't have the mindset, the flow, the inner abundance to hold what landed in his lap. It's proof that money without harmony is fragile. Think of wealth as a garden. Money is the fruit, but the real wealth is the soil, the sunlight, the water, the care you give it. If you obsess only over fruit, you miss the point. You must nurture the environment. Gratitude is sunlight. Generosity is water. Faith is fertile soil. When those are present, the fruit, money, opportunities, abundance, grows naturally. And isn't it true that the wealthiest moments of your life rarely had anything to do with a paycheck? Think back to the first time you held your child, or the day you laughed so hard with friends your stomach ached, or that morning you watched the sunrise and felt at peace. That was wealth. That was life overflowing, reminding you that abundance is everywhere if you tune into it. So, when I tell you that wealth is energy, I mean it literally. Everything vibrates, your thoughts, your words, your emotions. When you're in a state of lack, your energy constricts, like a fist clenched tight. Nothing flows in or out. But when you live in gratitude, in generosity, in joy, your energy expands, like open hands ready to receive. And guess what happens? Money, opportunities, relationships, health, they flow toward you because you've aligned with abundance. Florence believed that when people spoke affirmations, they weren't just chanting empty words. They were shifting their energy, realigning themselves with the universal current of wealth. Saying I now attract abundance in all ways is not only about financial prosperity. It's about welcoming abundance in love, in health, in ideas, in creativity, in peace. Because when you are abundant on the inside, wealth on the outside becomes inevitable. And here's the part that catches most people by surprise: wealth doesn't begin with money, but money often follows wealth. When you're joyful, people want to be around you. When you're creative, opportunities find you. When you're generous, connections multiply. When you're grateful, blessings expand. Each of those things eventually translates into financial growth, but the seed was never money, it was inner wealth. Let me ask you this: what would your life look like if you woke up tomorrow feeling truly wealthy before checking your bank balance? What choices would you make? What energy would you carry into your day? How differently would you speak, walk, dream? That shift alone, even before a single dollar arrives, would begin to reshape your reality. Wealth is harmony. Wealth is flow. Wealth is the alignment of your inner state with the abundance of the universe. When you understand that, money is no longer something you chase, it becomes something you attract. The exact 7 words, I now attract abundance in all ways. At first glance, they may sound simple, almost too simple, like something you could skim over and dismiss. But let me tell you, these 7 words are not ordinary. They are a doorway. They are a key. They are a password that unlocks something hidden in plain sight. Words like these work because they gather intention, faith, and vibration into one short phrase. And when you speak them with conviction, you are not just talking to yourself, you are issuing a command to life itself. Let's break this down slowly. The first 2 words, I now, they are not passive. They are not about some distant future. They are a declaration of immediacy. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Your subconscious mind doesn't understand waiting rooms, it understands presence. When you say, I now, you tell your mind and the universe that the time has already arrived. And this matters, because if you keep saying, one day I'll be rich, one day I'll be successful, then your mind keeps it one day away, forever postponed. The word now pulls your desire into the present, where creation actually happens. Then comes the word attract. Notice it doesn't say I chase, or I force, or I beg. It says I attract. There's a world of difference. Chasing implies lack. It suggests what you want is running away from you. Forcing implies struggle, like you must bend the world to your will. Begging implies unworthiness, like you're hoping for scraps. But attracting is magnetic. Attracting is effortless. A flower does not chase bees, it simply blooms, and the bees arrive. That's attraction. That's the essence of true wealth creation. Then the third piece, abundance. Not just money. Not just a paycheck. Abundance means overflow, more than enough, pressed down and running over. When you say abundance, you're not asking for a trickle, you're opening yourself to the floodgates. And abundance, in its true sense, includes love, health, creativity, opportunities, peace, and yes, financial prosperity. It's the total package. It's life saying, here, take more than you imagined. Finally, the last 3 words, in all ways. Think about that. Always. Not just in your career. Not just in your bank account. Not just in one narrow corner of your life. Always means wealth in relationships, wealth in ideas, wealth in experiences, wealth in health, wealth in joy. Imagine a tree. If one branch is full of fruit but the rest are withered, is that tree truly thriving? No. Real abundance touches every branch. When you affirm in all ways, you invite harmony, balance, and wholeness. Now picture speaking those words out loud, I now attract abundance in all ways. Imagine saying them not as a wish, but as a decree. Imagine repeating them when you wake up, when you feel doubt, when you look at bills, when you prepare for bed. Each time, it's like striking a tuning fork, bringing your energy into resonance with prosperity. You begin to walk differently, think differently, and carry yourself differently. And people feel it. Opportunities feel it. Life itself feels it. I knew a man who struggled with constant financial stress. He tried every side hustle, every business idea, every late-night scheme, but nothing worked. He was chasing, forcing, pushing. One day, after hearing about these 7 words, he thought it was silly. But something in him whispered, "What do you have to lose?" So he began. Every morning, I now attract abundance in all ways. Every night, I now attract abundance in all ways. At first, nothing seemed different. But within weeks, he noticed small shifts. A friend recommended him for a job he hadn't considered. An old contact reached out with a partnership idea. Discounts showed up on bills. Slowly, opportunities multiplied. He stopped chasing and started receiving. Looking back, he said the biggest change wasn't the money, it was the peace, the sense that he was finally in flow instead of in fight. Skeptics will say, how can 7 words change anything? But I ask you, haven't 7 words changed you before? Think about it. I'm proud of you. You're not good enough. I love you so much. It's time to let go. Just a handful of words, yet they shape memories, decisions, and destinies. Why? Because words carry energy. And when you choose them consciously, you redirect that energy. The beauty of these 7 words is that they are universal. Anyone can say them. You don't need a degree, a title, or a background in metaphysics. All you need is breath, voice, and intention. They bypass complexity and go straight to alignment. So, the next time your mind starts to spin with fear, when bills arrive, when opportunities seem scarce, stop and speak the code. I now attract abundance in all ways. Don't whisper it like a wish. Declare it like a truth. Feel it vibrating in your chest, ringing through your bones. And trust that even if you can't see it yet, the shift has begun. Because those 7 words are not just sentences. They are seeds. And every time you speak them, you water the soil of your future. Shifting your words shifts your frequency toward prosperity. That might sound mystical, but it's more real than most people realize. Think about radio stations. If you want to hear classical music, you don't tune into a heavy metal station and expect Mozart to come through. If you want jazz, you don't stay stuck on static. You turn the dial. You align with the frequency of the music you want. Words are that dial. Every phrase you speak tunes you either closer to abundance or deeper into lack. I remember meeting a young woman who had been struggling with money for years. Every time she opened her wallet, she'd sigh, "I'm so broke." Every time her friends asked about her future, she'd say, "Knowing my luck, nothing good will happen." These weren't just words, these were signals she was broadcasting into her own life. She was tuned into the frequency of lack, and lack kept playing back to her like an endless, depressing soundtrack. But then something shifted. She learned about affirmations, about the way words carry vibration. Instead of saying, "I'm broke," she began declaring, "I always have enough, and more is on the way." At first, she felt silly. But over time, something extraordinary happened. She noticed opportunities she had overlooked before. She applied for positions she wouldn't have dared to in the past. She attracted mentors who saw her potential. Within a year, she had tripled her income. The frequency had changed, and so had the music of her life. It's the same reason you can feel when someone is magnetic, even before they speak. Their words and energy are aligned. They walk into a room, and you sense confidence, possibility, abundance. Conversely, you've also met people who drain a space. Their words are coated in worry and doubt, and you feel it immediately. That is frequency. That is the invisible station they are tuned into, and it affects not only them but everyone around them. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that the universe doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are. And what you are is reflected in your words. If you say, "I can't," the universe matches it with obstacles. If you say, "I can," the universe matches it with opportunities. It's like ordering from a cosmic menu. If you keep saying, "I'm unlucky," you're essentially ordering more misfortune. But if you begin declaring, "Good things are always finding me," you're placing a new order and life delivers. Think about electricity. You don't see it, but you trust it. You flip the switch, and the light comes on. Words work the same way. Each phrase is a switch. Speak scarcity, and you dim your light. Speak abundance, and you brighten it. Over time, that brightness attracts other sources of energy, people, and resources that match your glow. Let me paint another picture. Imagine two gardeners. The first one, every morning, walks into the field and says, "This soil is dead. Nothing grows here. I'll never get a harvest." And so, day after day, he waters half-heartedly, gives up easily, and eventually, the ground does grow barren. The second gardener steps into the same field and says, "This soil is rich. The harvest is coming. Seeds are alive beneath the surface." He waters diligently, tends with hope, and sure enough, the soil responds. The difference wasn't the earth, it was the frequency of the words spoken into it. You might wonder, can words really change frequency that fast? Yes. Haven't you noticed how one compliment can light up your whole day? One insult can ruin it. That's because words don't just stay on the surface. They sink into your nervous system. They trigger emotions, and emotions are energy. Change the words, change the emotion. Change the emotion, change the frequency. Change the frequency, and suddenly your outer reality begins to reflect it. There's a story about a man who was always saying, "I can't afford it." His mentor told him to replace it with, "How can I afford it?" That tiny shift raised his frequency from resignation to curiosity. Instead of a dead end, it became an open door. And guess what? He started noticing ways to earn more, ideas that had been invisible before. Opportunities that had always been there suddenly stood out, like hidden paths revealed by sunlight. That is the power of a frequency shift. Florence often said that the subconscious mind is like a phonograph record. Whatever words you etch onto it will play over and over. If you don't like the song, you don't smash the record, you record new words. Over time, the old tune fades, and a new one takes its place. So when I say, shifting your words shifts your frequency toward prosperity, I'm not giving you a motivational slogan. I'm giving you a scientific, spiritual, and practical truth. Your words are the dials on your inner radio. Keep turning them toward abundance, and eventually, the static will fade, and the music of wealth, peace, and opportunity will begin to play loud and clear. Repetition and conviction make affirmations powerful. Think of it like this: a single drop of water falling on a stone may not leave a mark. But let that drop fall in the same place again and again, day after day, and over time the stone is carved. That is the secret of repetition. It wears away the old and shapes the new. Your mind is that stone. Your words are those drops. And when you repeat an affirmation with conviction, you carve a new path through your subconscious, a new pattern that guides your actions, your emotions, your expectations, until eventually your life itself bends to the shape of those words. There was a man who once struggled with crippling self-doubt. Every time an opportunity came his way, his first thought was, "I'm not good enough." That phrase became his prison. He heard it so often in his own head that he didn't even notice it anymore. It was the background music of his life. A mentor told him to replace that phrase with, "I am more than enough." At first, it felt fake. Hollow. He said it in the mirror and rolled his eyes. But the mentor insisted, "Keep saying it. Say it until the words start to sound familiar." So he did. Every morning. Every night. On his commute. Before big meetings. And something subtle began to happen. The words started to sink in. One day, he walked into a meeting and, for the first time, didn't feel small. He pitched his idea with confidence. The deal went through. That one victory led to another, and another, until his entire life changed. Not because of luck, but because of repetition and conviction. Florence Scovel Shinn knew this truth. She would tell her students, "You must speak the word until it becomes flesh." In other words, you must keep repeating it until the invisible becomes visible. Because words alone are not enough. Parrot them without feeling, and they're just sounds. But repeat them with fire, with belief even before belief fully arrives, and they become a force. Conviction is the electricity that powers the words. Think of an athlete training for a marathon. On day one, running a single mile feels impossible. But each day, with repetition, the body adapts, muscles strengthen, lungs expand. By the time the marathon arrives, what once seemed unreachable is now natural. The same happens with affirmations. At first, saying, "I now attract abundance in all ways" may feel awkward. But repetition strengthens the muscle of belief. Conviction adds the breath, the rhythm, the endurance. And soon, those words don't just feel natural, they feel inevitable. Let's make it practical. Imagine someone saying once, "I am wealthy." Then, the next day, they cancel it out with a dozen complaints about being broke. The single phrase barely touches their subconscious. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up the next day to see if it sprouted. No growth can happen. But imagine instead someone who says, "I am wealthy 100 times a day," with focus, with energy, with a picture in their mind of what wealth looks and feels like. That seed is watered, protected, nourished. And sooner or later, it pushes through the soil into reality. Science supports this too. Neuroscience tells us that neurons that fire together wire together. Each time you repeat a thought, you strengthen that neural pathway. Like a trail through a forest, the more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. Eventually, it becomes the default path your mind takes. Repetition carves the trail. Conviction paves it. Together, they turn affirmations into autopilot beliefs. There's a famous story of Muhammad Ali, the boxing legend. Long before the world called him the greatest, he was already calling himself that. Over and over, he declared, "I am the greatest." Even when nobody believed him yet, he said it with conviction. Reporters laughed. Critics scoffed. But he didn't care. He repeated it until the world had no choice but to agree. His words created his reality. That is the power of affirmations fueled by repetition and conviction. Now, imagine yourself standing in front of a mirror, repeating your chosen affirmation. At first, you may feel silly. You may not believe it yet. But here's the secret: you don't have to believe it fully in the beginning. Conviction grows with practice. Each time you speak, you add another drop of water, another stroke of carving on the stone. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you look at yourself and realize the words you once struggled to believe have become your truth. So, don't whisper your affirmations half-heartedly. Speak them like declarations. Say them with fire. Say them until your body feels them. Say them until your voice carries them like music through the air. Say them until the universe has no choice but to echo them back. Because repetition builds the rhythm. Conviction ignites the power. Together, they transform words from empty sounds into living forces that shape your destiny. Aligning with abundance opens unseen opportunities. At first, that sounds poetic, but let's sit with it. Life is full of doors, some you can see, some you can't. The funny thing is, most people spend their days staring at the doors that are closed. They push, they knock, they get frustrated when nothing opens. But abundance isn't about forcing the wrong door, it's about shifting into a state where the right doors appear almost effortlessly. Alignment doesn't create opportunities out of thin air, it allows you to finally notice the ones that were there all along. Think of it like walking through a dark room. The furniture was always there, the chairs, the table, the doorway. But without light, you stumble, bump your knees, maybe even give up in frustration. Alignment with abundance is like turning on the light switch. Suddenly, what seemed hidden becomes visible. You realize the doorway was right in front of you the whole time. I once heard about a woman who had been trying for years to grow her small business. She poured in hours of work, marketed endlessly, and yet nothing seemed to break through. Every morning, she woke up saying, "It's so hard. Nobody notices me." And that belief became her frequency. Then, after learning about Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, she decided to shift her words and her energy. Instead of repeating struggle, she declared, "I now attract abundance in all ways. The right clients are finding me." She didn't stop working, but she worked differently, lighter, more hopeful, more magnetic. Within weeks, someone she met casually at a coffee shop became her biggest client. Another person recommended her without her even asking. She often said later, "The opportunities were always circling me. I just couldn't see them until I aligned myself." That's the magic of abundance. It's not about begging for miracles. It's about tuning your inner world so that your outer world can respond. Picture two magnets. If one is misaligned, they repel each other. But shift it slightly, and suddenly the pull is undeniable. Life works like that. Abundance is not avoiding you, it's waiting for you to face it correctly. Sometimes people think alignment means sitting still, waiting for blessings to drop out of the sky. But alignment is not passive, it's active awareness. It's a state where your words, your emotions, your beliefs, and your actions harmonize. And when they do, you begin to notice doors you once ignored. The person you brushed past on the subway might be the exact contact you need. The email you almost deleted might carry the opportunity of a lifetime. Alignment sharpens your vision. I remember a young man who spent years saying, "I can't get ahead, everything is against me." He worked hard, but his energy was heavy. Then, slowly, he began to change his language. He started affirming, "Good things are always working out for me. I'm aligned with opportunities bigger than I can imagine." Within months, he said it felt like the universe had rearranged itself. But nothing outside had really changed, the economy was the same, the city was the same. What changed was him. By aligning his frequency with abundance, he became open, curious, expectant. And suddenly he started to notice doors that had been invisible when he was lost in negativity. Florence Scovel Shinn often said, "Nothing stands between man and his highest ideals but doubt and fear." When you align with abundance, you're not erasing all obstacles from life, you're dissolving the fog of doubt that kept opportunities hidden. You're stepping into clarity, and clarity makes paths obvious that once looked impossible. It's like being in a crowded airport, full of noise and announcements. If you tune your ear to your flight number, suddenly, through all the chaos, you hear it loud and clear. The abundance was always calling your name, you just had to align your attention to catch it. So when you repeat those 7 words, when you shift your words and your energy, remember this. You're not just hoping life will change, you're aligning with a stream of abundance that's already flowing. And once you step into that stream, doors begin to open, people begin to appear, and opportunities that seemed impossible suddenly become natural. Alignment doesn't force. It reveals. It doesn't strain. It flows. And the moment you tune into abundance, you realize the universe has been waiting to meet you halfway all along. So tonight, I leave you with a choice. You can walk out of here carrying the same words you've carried for years, words of doubt, words of fear, words that have kept you small. Or you can walk out carrying 7 new words. Words that ignite. Words that open doors. Words that tune you into the frequency of abundance. Say them once, and you'll feel a spark. Say them daily, and you'll feel a shift. Say them with conviction, and you will watch your world rearrange itself in ways you never thought possible. I now attract abundance in all ways. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for permission. Life doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards alignment. And alignment begins with the words you speak right now. So speak them until they live in your bones. Speak them until they echo in every corner of your mind. Speak them until your world has no choice but to echo them back. Because in the end, wealth doesn't begin in your wallet. Wealth begins in your words. And when you change your words, you change your frequency. When you change your frequency, you change your life. And when you change your life, you change the world. 7 words. 1 decision. Infinite possibilities. Now, tell me, what words will you speak tonight?